In this video, we're gonna learn how to make this little mariachi doll out of a pre-cut piece of craft wood. This is a 2.5 inch peg doll, 1/8 of an inch dowel, and some of these little jewelry eyelets. Also, some felt. This is gonna be a fun one. My name is Stevie. Let's get started. All we're gonna need for this project is this pre-cut 2.5 inch peg doll, this beer bottle decoration, and some of these little jewelry eyelets. I'm going to put a link in the description for all of these items here so you know where to get them if you want to make this project yourself. Let's get started. Let's start with the 2.5 inch pre-cut wooden peg doll. This is 2.5 inches, but I'm going to shorten this down to 1 3/4 of an inch. And the reason why is, these are great if you're not going to put legs on them, if you're just going to, paint a body on there with, a suit or whatever. But if you're gonna add legs, this body seems to be a little bit too long. So again, I'm taking this down to 1 3/4 of an inch, and then we'll add the arms and the legs. So let's take it over to the bandsaw. So what I've done here is I've drawn a rough line around this peg doll at 1 3/4 of an inch. And when I cut it on the bandsaw, I'm gonna rotate it, I'm gonna spin it, because if I don't, it's going to tend to pull the peg doll to the side and it's not going to be a very even cut. This is what we've got. It does look a little short, but when we add the legs, it's going to look great. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to round this rough edge here. That is the shape I want, so I'm going to take some sandpaper and clean it up just a little bit more. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw out where we're going to put the arms and the legs. This is simply going to be a little spot on both sides of the body and on the bottom for the legs. I want to put the arms very close to the neck on both sides. All right, and then I'll draw out the legs directly under the arms. And I want to put the legs pretty much right at the very end of this circular piece here. All right, on both sides. I've drawn these little pencil marks here. These are going to be where the arms and the legs go. Now I'm just going to take this nail and create a pilot hole. You can create a pilot hole with anything sharp. It could be a push pin, it could be a drill bit, it could be a nail. Okay, I've got the pilot holes. Now let's take it over to the drill press. This drill bit that I have here is very thin. This is the thinnest one I've got. I believe it's 3/64 of an inch, but if you have maybe 1/16 of an inch, that would probably work as well. So let me drill these holes out. Because this figurine is going to be so small, I chose this 1/8 of an inch dowel for the limbs, the arms and the legs. And so I'm going to use 1 1/8 of an inch for the arms, and for the legs I'm going to use just 1 1/4 inch. Now I haven't decided yet if I'm going to put shoes on this or if I'm just going to paint the tips black. But what we have to also consider is when we are creating the arms and the legs, we're going to be using the jewelry eyelets for the joints, for the the shoulders and the elbows. So that's going to create a little bit of space too. So that 1 1/8 of an inch arm, that's going to hang down a little bit further because of those joints. Let me cut this dowel to length, and then we will create the arms and the legs with the joints. When I was cutting these on the bandsaw, you notice that I took the 1 1/8 inch dowel and I cut that directly in half. Same with the 1 1/4 inch, and that is because we're going to have two pieces of the leg, the thigh and then the bottom part of the leg, and then of course the top part of the arm and the bottom part. So because they are so small, I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper, to sand off the rough edges instead of taking it to the belt sander. Now we're going to be creating the hinges for these little arms and legs. This is going to be a tough one because these dowels are so thin, 1/8 of an inch, and I've got to add these little jewelry eyelets as the joints. So I'm going to create a pilot hole in these arms and legs here so that I can drill these out as precise as I possibly can. So I'm trying to put this hole directly in the center of each one of these. I know that's going to be hard to see. And I'm starting with the arms. So right now I'm working on the shoulders and then the elbows. Be sure to keep these in order, by the way. And now I'll work on the legs here. I've got the pilot holes created. Now let's take it to the drill press. Okay, now we're going to be creating the joints for this mariachi doll. So these are, like I said earlier, these are jewelry eyelets. So these are made for making jewelry, but I use them for creating joints on these figurines. So because this piece is so small and these arms and legs are going to be so thin, this is going to take a little bit of time. I did not create the holes very deep inside of these arms and legs because they are so thin. So I'm going to cut this eyelet really short here, and just going to bend it over, crimp it down, and this is what I'm going to put into the arms and the legs. Let me start here with, actually I'm going to start with the body. So I dip it into, after I've crimped it, I dip it into the glue. And I also like to make sure that when the eyelet, when I'm holding the eyelet, that the part that opens is towards the bottom. And I do that really so that I can determine where it opens up if I need to open it up. So I'm going to try and make this a little shorter here. Bend it over, crimp it down. The eyelet opens here. Dip some glue in there. And I'm going to push it into that shoulder. Okay. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to open up the eyelet so that I know which side is actually the part that opens up. The other thing you want to make sure of is that when you do put these in, you want this to be the same direction, the eyelets to be in the same direction, meaning if you have one eyelet, this direction, you don't want the other one to be that direction, at least not on the same piece. Okay. Now that I've got all of the eyelets in for the joints, let's put everything together. So I'm going to start with the legs. This is the bottom part of the leg. This is the top part. As you can see, I've opened up the eyelet here. That's going to make it easier for me to just slide this in without having to determine which part of this was the actual opening. So all I do is stick that piece in there, and then I close up the eyelet. Then I take it to the body, and of course I've got the eyelet open. I put it on, and I just close up that eyelet. So it looks like that. All right, let me finish this off here. Okay. That's what it looks like. One thing I'm going to do for this particular figurine is I'm going to put a hole in the top of the head, and really so that I can hang it. So I'm going to add another eyelet to the top, and that's going to allow me to hang this as a decoration, an ornament, something like that. This is what we have so far. The next step is to paint it, put a hat on it, and then we'll add some details. We'll add a tie. We'll add some, details onto the actual mariachi suit as well. I decided I'm not going to put any shoes on there. These dowels are just way too thin and it's going to be too small of a boot for me to be able to do. So I'm just going to paint the tips of the legs black to make it look like a boot. So let's start the paint job. I'm going to be painting the mariachi suit white, and then I'll add the skin color here on the head and then on the hands. And then towards the end, I'll come around and I'll do the detail on the suit itself. So let me get started here. Okay, this is what we've got so far. I've painted the suit, I painted the face and the hands. And then for the boots, I just painted the very tips black to make it look like boots. So next thing we got to do is draw out the face. And to do that, I'm going to take the hat, which I've already painted, by the way. And I'm going to put it on here and see what it's going to look like here. All right, so now that I've got what the hat is going to look like, let me try and see if I can figure this out here. So that's where the eyebrows are going to be. I'll draw a nose like that. I think I'm going to try and fit a mustache on here. And if that's the case, the mouth will be right about there. And the eyes right about there. All right, so this is what I have so far. Let me take off the hat, clean this up a little bit, and then we'll put the detail on. All right, I did the mouth so it looks like he's singing. I kind of have like an open mouth there. Okay, I think that's good enough. The pencil where I drew the nose, I think I'm just going to erase the nose altogether and just add the mustache. So it's going to look something like that. All right. All right, that's going to be his tie. And so now I'm going to add some additional accents here. Let's see here. So these are going to be buttons that I'll just kind of dab on with some paint. And then we'll glue the mustache and the hat on. And I think I'll also add some additional dabs of paint on the side there. Okay, so I've got this purple paint here, which is going to match the tie. Don't need too much. I'm going to use the back of this drill bit actually to create those little dots. I'm going to just dab it on there. Looks pretty good. Okay, it's looking good. I decided I'm not going to put the accents on the side of the arm. The arm is just way too thin. So what I'm going to do next is first I'm going to gloss everything here. And after I gloss it, then I will glue on the mustache, the tie, and we'll top it off with the hat. All right, here we go. Let's glue these little pieces on here. So this is the tie that I'm going to put on. So let me just put a dab of glue on there. And then the mustache. Let me let that dry a little bit before we do the hat, but it's gonna look like that. All right, the tricky part here is trying to get this hat on and trying to get the, you know, the hanger through the hat at the same time. Something like that. So what I've done so far is I cut a little slit in the top of the hat, and I'm gonna try to attempt to put this on like this. Let me just twist it on here. Actually, let me cut a little bit of it first. I got it in there, so now let me see if I can slide it through the hat. Want that to be the front. There we go, it wasn't too bad. So now, let me just glue the hat on the rim of the hat here. All right. Here it is, the finished product, our little mariachi doll. My name is Stevie. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video to the end. I really appreciate it. I'm really trying to grow this channel, so please do me the favor, subscribe to the channel, like this channel, make a comment. I would really appreciate it. I've got a lot of great ideas I'd love to share with everybody, and I can only do that by growing this channel. So again, my name is Stevie. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.